podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
So your dad more like?
Sociedad. Scotcho. It won't be Scotcho though, will it? On bonfire night. Unless you get caught in one of the bonfires.
It'll be Coldio. I bet they don't have bonfire night in Spain, probably, do they?
No, given that it was a plot to blow up the English Houses of Parliament. I think there might be some fireworks in that game. What do you think?
Oh, no, you did not just do that.
I did. I've got more where that came from. It's a bottomless well of that. Gold.
What you're saying is David Moyes is going to use a Catherine wheel to pick his team.
Well, it's better than a tombola.
Yeah, it's more on fire.
Stoke.
Oh, God.
Wow. Look, there's some positives here because United have now gone 6 games unbeaten since West Brom, 3 wins on the spin. That all sounds really good. I've seen a lot of positive commentary after the performance against Norwich and, David Moyes is doing a great job again, isn't he? How fickle we are, except there are definitely some issues which might be masked by that little run, and they manifested themselves in the game against Stoke, didn't they, where United were 12 minutes away from a pretty ignominious defeat.
Absolutely. You're right to say loads of positives. In truth, 2 wins since we last spoke, and that has not been something we've been able to take for granted anymore. And I think there are some positives to be drawn from the manner of the victory, but more by luck than judgment, in that actually that was very Manchester United, right? We came back and won with a very late goal. But blimey, we were atrocious for the first 70 minutes of that game until we were once again saved by an 18-year-old football genius.
It's becoming a pattern, isn't it? It's hard to express just how bad United were for 75 minutes or so. And that first half, legitimately, Stoke should have been 4-0 up. I don't think that would have been hard on them, would it? They created a lot of chances. United were absolutely terrible defensively, all of them. I mean, I know you're a big fan of Johnny Evans, but my did he have a bad game. You know, my frustration with him is that he's got all the talent. Got all the talent in the world, and Salil on the blog this week read a very nice piece praising Johnny Evans, saying he's now United's best defender and the main man. My problem is he's got this one fundamental problem, and he gets out of position, and he does it a lot. Problem with that is if you're a striker, you don't score enough goals. If you're a defender, you start conceding a lot. And I know which is the worst flaw to have, and Johnny Evans has that. And I kind of hope at 25 he would have eradicated that by now, but he hasn't quite. Anyway, and it contributed to United's performance defensively. I can't leave the criticism there because Phil Jones, who has a different problem, he makes individual mistakes, and they manifested themselves in some goals as well.
It's a funny one because I feel like the centre-backs in that game were kind of under the spotlight because they made individual errors. But the truth, no doubt, lies somewhere between our 2 positions on Johnny Evans, where I think he's basically Baresi. And, you're not nearly as convinced by that position. The fact that Manchester United's midfield is so insanely porous at the moment, and the fact that the fullbacks are bombing on the whole time, although we'll come to fullbacks in terms of the right-hand side, it must mean that there is an unrealistic level of expectation when the centre-backs are being offered almost no protection by the people in front of them.
Credit to Moyes, I suppose, in that he went for brains over brawn in picking Cleverly ahead of Fellaini for a game against Stoke. Common logic might have said pick the big guys, given Stoke's history, and they still play a pretty direct brand of football under Mark Hughes. They're pretty robust, and of course Hughes has a reputation anyway as a manager. So some credit goes to Moyes there, but Cleverly was clearly very, very rusty. He hasn't played for a little while, and he's just very lightweight. The major problem I have with Cleverly, I think he's technically very good. He loves possession of the football, and that's a thing to cherish in English football, isn't he? But he's so safe with it. And then when he's so safe with his passing and he doesn't contribute much defensively, he becomes a little bit of a liability. He feels a bit lightweight, frankly. And that's a problem. And, he's not a youngster anymore, right? So you kind of hope he would have developed a bit more than that. It's a big thing for Cleverly here because I don't think he's going to turn himself into sort of all-action, all-round midfielder. I mean, you've seen a few midfielders do that in the past where they'd not quite cut it technically. So Darren Fletcher and Jordan Henderson, I'm thinking of. They've tried, and Scott Parker. All 3 of them are basically turned themselves into kind of all-round, all-action midfielders. I don't think Cleverley can do that. So in order to really make it a United, he's got to add to the creative side of his game. And he didn't do that either, and that's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael Carrick definitely has not woken up yet this season properly. He's had some okay games, but he's not playing at the top of his game by any means. But he wasn't by this time last year either. And then he kind of really came back to life.
And the same the season before that, actually. And this is a point that Ferguson made, that Carrick starts the season slowly, and then apparently Carrick rejects this. But, the evidence is there, right? He's not having a great season. Didn't think he was that bad at the start of last season. He was out of the team at the start of the season prior to that, until the Swansea game when United went on a mega run, and of course he was superb that season. He does need to pull his finger out, because he's the main man. He's the experienced player there. He's supposed to be holding the midfield together.
Well, yeah, and if it's not him, who is it? We're really in trouble. But really interesting that we've got a £30 million midfielder, and starting ahead of him are a 40-year-old winger and then a player who hasn't played any games. I was really expecting to see Fellaini in the Capital One Cup until I realised after I'd submitted my predicted 11 that, of course, he's cup-tied. You say it's hard to put into words how bad United were in that game. By half-time, I'd shrugged my shoulders and thought, oh, well, this is our lives now. This is what we get. I was watching it on telly and I just thought it was staggeringly awful. I got a message from a friend of mine that was at the game and had come home and watched it on Sky. And he said, the match replay thing, he said, you cannot overstate how much worse we were in real life than we even looked on TV. And we looked so bad on TV and we were way worse in real life. And what he'd said was that you also couldn't tell quite from TV just how dramatic an impact Adnan Januzaj had. That it wasn't just about what he contributed, but also the space he made for other players. And I have to say, I really enjoyed the last 20 minutes of that game. We had on the pitch at the same time Wayne Rooney playing in central midfield, Robin van Persie, Chicharito, Kagawa, Januzaj, all in the same team, and that was really, really fun to watch. Valencia was playing, was he as well, at right back at one point?
Yeah, it was incredibly gung-ho at the end. I mean, the thing that shocked me most of all is that Wayne Rooney didn't put in a transfer request after that. I don't get it.
No,
he's not happy playing there. Oh, unless he was happy playing there. Which is it, Wayne? Are you happy playing there or are you not happy playing there? Because I'm a little bit confused about this one, because it kind of depends on, whether his contract's up for renewal or not. I mean, which week he's saying this. No, I mean, whether he's happy or not.
It was more than 10 or 15 minutes as well. And he was really good there. We looked really functional at that point. Really interesting, I suppose a very key talking point from that game was the booing of Nani when he came off. And I have to say, I had a little Twitter dispute with someone who said that Kagawa was as ineffective as Nani. Statistics don't prove anything, but with my eyes, that sounded not correct to me. And then looking at the statistics, it's kind of wildly wrong. I mean, Nani made United's goal in the first half, but everything else he did was disastrous. Kagawa wasn't pulling up any trees by any stretch of the imagination, but Nani was truly awful. But really, seriously, the Old Trafford crowd, I don't know how we can boo our own players given what the last 25 years have been like.
So 3 points I want to make. One is on Januzaj. Absolutely right. His use of space is fantastic, and off the ball he's way more mature than 18 years old. I mean, we all know how good he is on the ball. As Daniel Harris said, he's like a player made of velvet. It's absolutely lovely to watch. But off the ball, he's brilliant because he drifts into spaces, and he's very good at anticipating where the ball will go next. We'll come to Norwich, but he was even better then. That's 1 point. Kagawa, he finds it really hard to play off the left and influence the game in the same way, and it pulls United out of shape. So he ends up not protecting his fullback because he comes inside looking for space to find the ball to play the right balls. Eventually he played the last 12 minutes at number 10. Thought he was very good in those 10 minutes. He got the ball. He was able to dictate tempo a little bit easier. I mean, in 10 minutes it's hard to draw all those conclusions, of course. And then the third point I wanted to make on Nani, it's a total disgrace. I don't care how bad he is. You don't boo him because, that's going to ruin his confidence anyway, so it's counterproductive. And we're Manchester United fans, not Manchester City fans. We don't do that kind of thing. I don't think I've ever heard it before. I know there was a lot of nonsense talked about Ryan Giggs being booed years and years and years ago. I was at that game. I didn't see it that way myself, but, I think we've probably talked about that one on the pod before. So I don't think that's what United fans should do. Definitely shouldn't be doing it at home. That's a real shame. He's just signed a 5-year contract. What are we trying to achieve by doing that?
It's crazy times, right? His confidence is already clearly very vulnerable. It's really interesting because if Rooney had a bad game, he wouldn't be getting the boos, he'd be getting the Rooney. I mean, Nani doesn't do himself many favours with his general demeanour, and I completely can understand why large sections of the crowd are very frustrated with Nani. It seems to me that giving him a 5-year contract was a pretty high-risk manoeuvre, right? It's not a guaranteed win to do that, presumably on pretty big wages.
Well, it's on big wages, though I believe not the size of wage packet he was after a year or so ago. So he's on big wages, but it protects United's investment and he can still be sold. So it doesn't mean he's going to see out his 5-year contract by any means. And his wages are such that there is a bigger pool of available destinations than there would be for Wayne Rooney, for example, and he'd still be attractive, because he does come up with the numbers, generally speaking, and you can see why Moyes likes him, because he can have a real impact. But his decision-making lets him down. It always has done. It's never got any better. And now at 26, I don't believe it will get any better. This is the Nani we'll be stuck with for life. He'll blow hot and cold. And he blew very, 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 very cold. It was really abysmal as a performance. And, I can totally understand why everyone is frustrated and angry with him. You just keep it to the pub, not the pitch.
This is the thing, because I'm kind of guilty of this, really, because we talk about this on the podcast. You write articles about stuff. I talk about stuff on Twitter too much, and some of it's pretty negative about the players because when they do bad things, you just say, this is what I thought happened. But I do think that culture, of course, then transfers into the ground to a certain extent, and that is slightly problematic because in the ground you can actually have a bearing on how players feel about themselves and all that kind of stuff. There's a degree where by your actions have a bit more consequence in that setting, and if you're going to boo Nani, he's going to not feel good and then he's not going to play well. Yeah,
I do think it's different. So, I frequently get told in various social media forums or on the website in comments or in the forum on the Rant website that I should be supporting the players, and I think people get mixed up here because honestly I don't think Nani is trawling through my Twitter feed to check what I'm saying about him. Nani had a poor game today, says at United Rant. Oh no, woe is me, and if I praise him, he'll be high on confidence. Yeah, if only, Dr. Ed, a sports psychologist.
Yeah, that would be great if you had that much bearing, because you just go, oh, Nani's brilliant, and then he would play brilliantly all the time.
Anyway, that was Stoke, and, the highlight being Adnan's impact late in the game. On to Norwich, the highlight being Adnan's impact for the whole game. The maturity of performance Januzaj put in against Norwich from the number 10 position floating behind Hernandez was incredible. He controlled the entire game. Everything went through him. He dictated how United played, the pace at which United played, dictated the movement of other players. He always looked for the ball. Incredibly mature, incredible how he's translated his form for the reserves into that kind of stage. Got to say, I didn't think it would happen this quickly, but absolutely brilliant player. He looks every bit a real star in the making, doesn't he? And yes, Norwich at home, yes, there wasn't much of a defence put up, but all credit possible, I think. Fine performance.
Fine performance from him, fine performance from Chicharito, fine performance from United all round, really. Only 4-0 slightly flattering, and very much about the last sort of 20 minutes of that game where Norwich really had given up. Interesting to see Wilf Zaha finally play a role, and sort of a bit confusing, really, because it wasn't like he was amazing, but he was definitely really good work rate, one really brilliant cross, a lot of promise and invention and excitement. It's not like he looked off the pace, right?
I guess the frustrating thing is, what his problem is, right? He's very, very direct, and he doesn't know the time at which you pass and the time at which you go to play. I mean, he beat Garrido all ends up after about 5 minutes, and it's quite clear he had the beating of this guy, but there's situations where he needs to not stand on the ball and he needs to play it and move the ball quickly, and that's a bit of frustration, and you just want him to learn. I spoke to a Crystal Palace fan this week who said he hadn't passed the ball for about 3 years. What do you expect? Fair enough when you're at Palace and you're the best player, not at United. So I think he'll learn, but the frustration here is that he hasn't really been given the opportunity to learn in a game environment. And he probably should have been. I think it's a bit odd that we've got till the end of October and this is the time he's made his first team debut.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if he'd looked kind of really, really raw or slightly unfit or whatever, it would have made more sense of the complete absence of him from the side. And you do just wonder what's been going on behind the scenes. I'm not talking about the kind of slightly comedy rumours, but, in real life, something must have been happening.
Well, he hasn't been putting the performances in the training pitch, I'm assuming. For all Moyes' stubbornness about players he doesn't know. I'm sure someone told him that Wilf Zaha was quite good.
Yes. In fairness to Moyes, we should offer a minor correction from last week, saying that Moyes had said that once again someone told him how good Kagawa was, because he then went on to say, this is the first time I've really seen it myself. So actually then it's set in some context. It's not just him saying it again for no reason.
Yes, but it has become a major Moyesism, hasn't it? Someone told me. Pointed out by, Daniel Harris from The Guardian, Moyes said that someone had told him that it took Alex Ferguson 7 years to win the first Premier League. Well, let me tell you, as someone, you will not be getting 7 years to win your first Premier League title at Old Trafford, Mr. Moyes.
And nor should you, because the roof was leaking when Alex Ferguson took over. We hadn't won the league for 20 years, and you have taken over the team with the best facilities in the country by some considerable distance, who have just won the league by 11 points, despite playing the last of their fixtures drunk.
Mind you, it's not the roof that's leaking, it's the bank account.
Yes, quite. And the midfield as well, which Fergie hasn't said anything in his book about, as far as I've got to yet, about why he's never bought any midfielders for the last 5 years.
No leaking against Norwich. Clean sheet. So alongside the Adnan Januzaj performance, we had goals, 2 from Hernandez. A bit of a soft penalty, I thought.
Oh, I don't know. If you look at that, he definitely pushed his leg out of the way. Yeah.
Found the leg. I could understand the frustration with that one. And then a fine header from Chicharito. And then Phil Jones, Jonesinho, L. Jones. This is Negrete in the 1986 World Cup. Well, this was, wasn't it?
Not quite the same
quite.
level of grace, but fantastic finish and an absolutely delightful moment that was. He played all right in midfield, actually.
He did. He gave a bit of solidity in there. I mean, I think it's obvious that Moyes is looking for an answer there, isn't he? He needs something a bit more robust alongside Carrick, or he needs to play 3 in midfield, or he needs to find a totally different solution. But I don't think Phil Jones will be it against the very highest level, but he did okay against Norwich, I thought.
Yeah, really useful against not the very highest level, presumably. And then really useful against the very highest level to do that crazy central defender in central midfield role that we talked about last season. All in all, it was a good performance and fantastic to get a clean sheet, of course. That must be joy for all the team and staff and defenders and stuff. But only Norwich in the League Cup, they clearly weren't particularly bothered, especially once they got a couple of pretty nasty injuries. That injury to Snodgrass looked really scary for a minute, didn't it? It was a nasty moment when Lindegaard put him straight in the recovery position, and you think, my goodness, that's not a good sign, is it?
No, apparently out of hospital, concussion. Yeah, really, really unpleasant when that happens. But I think the medical facilities are now pretty good. I mean, remember when Petr Cech got that really nasty injury a few years ago, and Jose Mourinho had a big rant about it, and I think there was a pretty significant review after that. So, medically, people are well cared for, players are well cared for these days, and, so was he. But it delayed the game a fair bit, didn't it? And, 10 minutes or something? It was
11.
11, was it? Yeah, it was quite a significant amount. And, but he's okay, so it's okay.
So, haven't really sort of been in a position where Moyes had a very rough week last time we spoke, hadn't he? I mean, we had the Sociedad game to take the edge off it, but things were not going well. It looked very much during that Stoke game like that was going to continue, and that really would have been a very, very serious game not to win, Stoke at home. But in the end, he turned that round and then got the nice, comfortable win in the League Cup. Once again, it's looking a bit rosier as well. He's also exhibited some much more pleasing tendencies. We talked about Gary Neville saying the club would change David Moyes. It's interesting because he's seen what happens now when you put all the attacking players on the pitch all at the same time. We end up keeping on going until we win the game. And you wonder if little things like that will make a difference. We didn't talk about it in the Stoke section, but I think the selection over Chris Smalling over Raphael was a really serious selection error. Obviously, he's in there for height, right? This is what you will always hear. It's for height. But what about being good at being a fullback?
It's not the first time that error has been made. I mean, look, I like Smalling. I think he's got huge potential. His problem, if there is one, is his passing, right? That's his weakness. I think his defending is excellent and he does get in the right positions physically. He's a fine specimen. He's got loads of pace. At right back, what is he? He's like 60% of the player, if that. He doesn't really have a good cross on him. He doesn't get in the right positions, and it just doesn't make any sense to me, got to say. I think it's really unfair to keep swapping players all around all the time. He's a centre-back. If you don't think he's one of the two best centre-backs at the club, well, he's a reserve centre-back, fair enough. It made no sense to me to move him to right-back. If you want to rest Raphael, we've got Fabio in the club. 2 years ago, he was starter in the Champions League final. Apparently, he's not good enough to get a new contract anymore and seemingly on the way out. Took a very late substitution, didn't it, in the Capital One Cup to get him into the game and score a goal. But, we've barely seen him. He hardly ever makes the bench. I think Moyes is, a little mixed up over the right-back spot. Just play Raphael, right? He's a fine right back. If he's not the best right back in the Premier League, he's damn close to it. There shouldn't be any reason to not play him, and if you're not going to play him, play a right back. And we have one in Fabio.
For a little bit, but Fabio scored, bowed to the Stretford end, put on Instagram, "This club has changed my life and my family's life." Pretty clear that there's a kind of there's a definite sad goodbye in the air, isn't there? Because it's a shame, but it doesn't look like he's part of Moyes' plans, and he hasn't had the development that Raphael's had from. Last season was Raphael's breakout season, really, wasn't it? Not that he hadn't had loads of football before. He had. Last season was the season where he became the player that we all kind of rely on, and Fabio's just not had that, has he?
No, he hasn't, and it's been unfortunate for him. Unfortunate that he has got a lot of injuries. The season after he started in the Champions League final should have been a major season for him. And instead he spent a lot of the time in the treatment room. And then last year on loan at QPR, again, should have been a good season for him. But he spent a lot of the time on the bench or injured at a relegated club. Not good for him either. I don't think we always get these loans quite right. Sometimes it turns out very well, doesn't it? But a fair few of them haven't turned out very well. And for Fabio, not at all. And I think it's a shame. I think he's got bags of talent, and we're short on fullbacks because you can't call Alex Butner a fullback. He's a bad winger, and he sometimes plays at left back. He put in an absolutely brilliant cross, didn't he, for a goal the other night, but defensively he's just horrible.
He's got some talent for sure, and he's fun to have around, but my goodness, we've had a let's move on to some quitter questions, shall we? We had a question about left backs in the January window from @Sir Chris Zamora. Is left back a necessity this January or a luxury? You would think it's going to be right up there on Moyes' priorities this January.
So the priority is still to get a left back because no one has any faith in Butner, and Moyes clearly doesn't have any faith in Fabio in that position. I'm not sure it would be the top of my priority list. I think a central midfielder is the definite priority. Evra is having a decent season, but of course he's 32 and, out of contract next summer. Moyes is fixated on Baines, it seems, so it looks like they'll try and make another bid for Baines. We'll see. He hasn't signed a new contract at Everton, so maybe that opens the door. It's not as if Everton were welcoming of a bid previously, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So, on the subject of Twitter questions, last week we were asked what Manchester United players would dress up as on Halloween parties, and I said that Robin van Persie had a Dracula-like quality, and lo and behold, he went the full count.
Oh, terrible, bad.
That was not meant as a terrible pun. I've just worked out what you mean. No, I'm not mean like he went the whole way. It's
all right. You don't need to explain. Just digging away, Paul. Just digging away. Proof again that United players listen to Rantcast. Fact. We know that Fergie did. Because clearly, he instigated many of the changes we demanded.
Fergie, of course, spoke at the Lowry this week, done a couple of speaking engagements, lots of people tweeting and writing reports of that, and it did look like a really fun night, but no Q&A, of course, because he doesn't want to answer the questions that we want to ask him, right? Lots of kind of questions asked of us, but like, if we could get him as a guest, if we ever did a live Rantcast, what would we ask him? And it's like, we can't. He would never answer the questions we want to ask him. The questions we want to ask him are ones he's been asked and chosen not to answer, right?
Yeah, quite. Yeah, mine than you, if we offered to pay him.
No, his book's become the fastest selling non-fiction book ever, so I don't think he's got any problem on that score if he wasn't already bajillionly wealthy enough. Paul Hayward has probably got a really nice payday out of this, right? Assuming he's got a piece of the action.
he might just be up for a fixed fee. Who knows? If he was sensible, he'd have asked for a percentage.
Given the way his kind of post-release press stuff's gone, I think he's on a percentage for sure. All right, so, okay, this is my question to you, Ed. If you had to ask Fergie a non-hostile question, what would you ask him that was kind of like a nice question that you might ask Fergie?
How much did you enjoy your massive pay rise since 2005? What lovely things did you buy your wife with that £50,000 that found its way accidentally into your locker after the Andrei Kanchelskis deal?
Can't do it, can you? Can't just take the cynical hat off for 2 seconds.
No, I can't.
And ask him a sincere question about all the great footballing joy he's brought you.
Yeah, well, he's answered all those before, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? I think I would just ask him to just talk about Eric for a bit. That's what I'd like. I'd like to see that in real life, Sir Alex talking about Eric. All right, at MUFC Jeff says, from one of his daughters, the question is, which Mario character is Robin Van Persie most like? Pretty sure it's just Mario. He's the main one. He's certainly not Luigi. If he was Luigi and Wayne Rooney was Mario, that would be very sad times. I was always quite partial to Toad in Mario Kart, so maybe he's a bit Toad. You could do a whole thing of United's people. Who's Yoshi? Danny Welbeck, because he's lovable. Jeff's other daughter says, which player would you re-christen on the back of their shirt and to what? I think a lot of journalists would probably like Januzaj to just have Adnan written on the back of his shirt, but that's not good. We don't approve of that sort of thing.
Yes, I can think of a few short names I might give Wayne Rooney.
Yes, absolutely. Oh yeah, of course, the most obvious one in the world. On the back of the shirt, which has the number 19 on it, instead of a name, it would just say, that guy, to answer a question asked by at No Dave, No Party. Welbs is that guy.
Ah, see, yeah, it's a reference that went well beyond me for a second there.
At Lucas_MUTD, this is a question you're going to enjoy, Ed, right? This one's for you. I'm opting out of this. Who's United's worst player? Is it Young or Anderson? Or is there another contender, Ed?
Well, yeah, there are worse players. Clearly, because both Young and Anderson are internationals. Well, sort of. Not current internationals. Is Anderson out of the Brazilian setup for long enough that we can call him a former international?
He's not. They're not going to pick him, are they?
No, they're certainly not, unless it's for water carrying duty. Literally water carrying duty. So, I guess Young has his qualities, right? So, he can put in a decent cross sometimes. He actually had a decent game against Norwich. We've been talking post-Norwich about this might be a platform for him to build on. God help us all. So, I guess Anderson's the worst player because he is almost never put in an effective performance and almost never contributes anything. I mean, when people tell me, remember those games against Steven Gerrard 5 years ago. It's Anderson's birthday, is it not? Coming up soon, and he'll be in his mid-20s, and that's about how many games he's finished for United, and I can count on my one hand how many good games he's had. So there you go. I just had a rant about Anderson for no particular reason, because he never plays. I know you enjoyed doing that. Didn't even get in the Carling Cup side. That's not a good sign for Anderson. Unfortunately, the jokes were going around this week at the UFC, Adnan and Patrice Evra, and they were photographed with some really massively fat guy in the middle, which turned out to be one of Patrice Evra's 57 brothers, or however many he's got. It's pretty much that many. It's a lot. And poor old Ando was the butt of many jokes. At Paul_Haves says, if I'm not too late, does Adnan's performance the other night put Kagawa as third choice for number 10? I don't think it does, purely because if you've got to have one of them on the wing and one of them at number 10, then I would have Adnan on the wing and Kagawa at number 10, because Adnan doesn't seem to lose much effectiveness when you play him on the wing. Yeah. And I'd like to see him and Kagawa on the same side with Rooney and Van Persie. I think you can do it. It did happen. Funny enough, actually, the Stoke game, you said that you thought it was very unlikely Shinji would get picked for that, and he did. And then Adnan came on, and they did look like a good unit altogether, but it relies on Rooney being happy not to play at his precious number 10 position. Poor old Wayne Rooney not playing at number 10. Boo-hoo-hoo. So, shall we talk about the football coming up? Because there are some good games coming up, I think. United have a tricky-looking tie. Is this the word that we always use for Fulham? Fulham have actually been pretty terrible this season until quite recently, and Yol was on the verge of the sack, it seemed. But a tricky-looking tie in West London against Dimitar Berbatov's Fulham. What do you make of this one?
Fulham have not been bad until quite recently. Fulham have been bad except for that Palace game, and they've gone on to be bad again since then. Martin Jol's attempt at counterbalancing Adel Taarabt and Dimitar Berbatov with Scott Parker and Stephen Sidwell has not quite worked. I see the logic. It's like a mean average of work rate and a mean average of flair that he's trying to kind of get into the side, but it's not all gelling, and things have to go really right for Fulham for them to go right. I don't know how we could describe this as a tricky looking tie. I can't really think of many easier ties at the moment. I'm not saying we're going to win because we have every capacity to muck it up ourselves, but if you're looking for one of the easier games in the league this season, surely it's got to be playing against Fulham. Bags of talent, but just not anywhere looking like nearly coming together.
Yeah, but they might put it together against United. I mean, there's all the motivation to do it, isn't it? And they've actually got a decent record against United at Craven College, haven't they? Craven Cottage.
I like to think of it as Craven College, you know. He's a Dutchman. He likes to teach the people the football. Dimitar Berbatov is a professor of goals, you know.
Yeah, for sure. That's the most I'll ever do in a dodgy Dutch accent.
I think it might have been better than mine, I'm not sure.
So, anyway, at Craven Cottage, United have had a few poor results over the years. You cannot forget that 3-0, not too many, that was abysmal, and 3-3 a couple of seasons ago, right?
The 3-0 was Michael Carrick at centre-back, right? That was really brutal. That was in the midst of our defensive crisis where we were punished for that game where we played 7 defenders against Arsenal by the gods of football, who smote us down with a series of central defensive crises, and that was the absolute nadir of that season, wasn't it, that game? My goodness.
It was. They'd beaten us 2-0 the season before as well, and then the 2-2 came, and then we were on 5-0. But we'll just forget that in my analysis of how difficult Craven Cottage is, shall we?
I mean, yeah, we've had a couple of bad games there when they were better than they are now, and we were really struggling. If we don't win this game relatively comfortably, it's perfectly reasonable to say that that's because we've not done our job properly. They're so bad. They are so bad. Even that game where they beat Crystal Palace, who are even worse, 4-1, the game that got Ian Holloway the sack/resignation, they weren't even that great. They scored some wonderful goals, but they didn't put that many moves together. They looked vulnerable at the back against Crystal Palace. Any kind of serious concerted pressure and any kind of playing to anywhere near our abilities, we should win this one.
Yeah, should do. Interesting to see what United side comes out, because Moyes has gone a bit negative in some of the away games. Will he do that at Craven Cottage, or will this newfangled attacking Manchester United that we just found in the last game come out or not? A last game in 20 minutes. Who knows? I couldn't tell you, although if Januzaj isn't playing, it'll be a crime against humanity.
It will.
Let alone football.
A little chat about are we getting carried away about Adnan? Because I'm very firmly in the no, we are really definitely not. This is something absolutely amazing we're witnessing. I mean, I was thinking about it and I said that the only 2 players I can remember making this much impact at that age are Giggs and Ronaldo, and then my timeline was absolutely filled with people reminding me of the existence of a slightly nicer 18-year-old version of Wayne Rooney. This, I mean, it's so early.
Yeah, and Norma Whiteside before him. Yeah. So there have been a few precedents.
Absolutely. But not many, right? It's rarefied air.
Of course. I mean, that's the point. It's rare, and I think we have something rare here. Who knows exactly how far his form will go? That is a question. There's a nice interview with Ryan Giggs this week who said, right now I don't have to tell him much, because when a young player is playing so well, you just want to let them get on with it, and he's got all the great qualities. It's when it's not going well and he has a dip in form, which is inevitable, that I'll talk to him. And of course, there's no one better than Ryan Giggs to understand this. In the United first team at 17 and absolutely brilliant with it, but suffered with dips in form his whole career, didn't he? So he understands this, and he'll help Januzaj through it. Another nice interview with Robin Van Persie this week, who said he absolutely loves him and he has all the qualities to be a top player, and he loves playing with him. So the players have faith in him because they can see what's on the pitch. This guy delivers, and might as well use it while he's playing well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's fine to get overexcited about it. I mean, as you say, so much can happen from here on out. I mean, heaven forfend, one serious injury and the whole picture looks really different, and we just really hope that doesn't happen. And this is a bit of a cliche, but I really do think it's true. Even with Fergie gone, he couldn't be at a better club for this kind of thing. But as you say, because Ryan Giggs is there, who better to be on the coaching staff for a player like that than Giggs?
Well, yes.
He's not going to coach the brilliance out of him, He's not going to stifle that sort of thing, but he will be there when he's needed.
Yeah, although there is Moyes, Steve Round, Chris Woods and Jimmy Lumsden who, a bunch of long ball merchants that might coach the bejesus out of him. Let's hope not,
But it's not happening. That is clearly not happening. He's not being asked by those people that you've just mentioned to do anything other than play his game at the moment.
We're only a few games into the season, so, we'll see.
Wow,
we'll see.
His spectacular ability to find cynicism where only beauty and joy exists,
No, so, look, over the years, Wayne Rooney has changed his game, and a lot of that is coaching, so Rooney doesn't attempt to beat a player now, and he did at 18. And the exciting thing about Januzaj is he's a free-flowing player who can beat a player and find space, and, he's a creative type, and that could easily be coached out. He could be turned into a pretty standard wide player or midfielder, and that would be a shame, wouldn't it? So I'm not being cynical about it. This has happened with many players, creative players over the years. So let's hope that Moyes is not old school about it. The other thing is, of course, he's got to fit into a team system. And we haven't quite worked out what Moyes' team system is yet. And there's two players there in Kagawa and Januzaj who might not naturally fit into a Moyes-type system. And he's got to try and work out what they offer and how to do it in the best format to get the best qualities out of those two players and the team. As a collective. And again, they might not fit into the system that he wants to play, or he might want to play a system that doesn't suit them.
But, Moyes is the manager that started him. Moyes is the one that's kind of praising him and put him in the first team squad and all those kinds of things. So clearly he thinks that it's worth it for the talents that he's offered to make the changes that are necessary to his system, whatever that might be. And I think he doesn't know himself what his system is. And also, I think he's got lots of different systems. I think he does approach the games against the smaller teams with a different approach than he does the big teams. And I think a lot of, certainly what I think of Moyes' kind of inherent negativity is about the games against the big sides, and against the smaller sides he doesn't necessarily have that mindset, although of course the Southampton substitutions were a bit worrying on that regard. Anyway,
pretty weird contrast in substitutions, wasn't it, between Southampton and Stoke?
Yeah, and look at the relative merits of both. And, Stoke was absolutely rubbish for the first 60 minutes, but it was brilliantly fun last half hour. And I do think the come-from-behind victory will be good for Moyes. It's good to know that we've still got that in us, even though it is against Stoke, and Stoke are truly abysmal. That was the really worrying thing about that game. I mean, I kind of was really having a pop at Fulham earlier and just thinking, I'm sure I said similar things about Stoke. So then we're going to play Sociedad, who really did not put up particularly stiff opposition, and they're still struggling in La Liga. But you would assume, I would assume in my ignorant fashion, that they'll be more impressive at home.
They are very good at home, and they have a very passionate crowd there. And it's the Basque thing. It's an old stadium. They have always been known for kind of passion and atmosphere at home. And I think they'll do that. Whether it'll be enough to inspire them into a better performance than they put up against United at Old Trafford is a big thing, right? Because United were good in that game and Sociedad were pretty meek, so you'd expect a little bit more. I guess the thing that interests me most is how United will approach this one, because they were really very negative in Shakhtar, and for a lot of that game it kind of worked. You got the goal and could therefore control the tempo of the game, and just got a bit too negative, and Shakhtar came into it enough and caused enough pressure to get the goal, right? So how do we approach this one? Because a win in this game pretty much guarantees qualification. Going a bit negative and losing perhaps with a late goal or something like that, when it looks like we might get a draw, even drawing would leave us on 8 points, and then we've got two tough games, one at home to Shakhtar, you expect United to win, and the away at Leverkusen, which might be difficult.
Absolutely. It's going all right, isn't it, Champions League so far? And this is, it's a very different test to the one faced away in Shakhtar, and you do wonder if Moyes will revert to that kind of more defensive approach. I guess I wouldn't be surprised to see three in midfield. In my head, that makes sense, because I do worry about us just getting passed around in a normal midfield situation, but I really worried about that before the game in the home leg, and it turned out that all that was needed to avoid that was making sure we played Ryan Giggs for his excellent ball retention and incredible attacking prowess.
Yeah, this is a key decision. It's a big tactical decision for Moyes, and how to do it. As I said, Anoeta is an atmospheric ground, although as I remember it, there's a running track around it. But it will be a tougher game for United than the home one for sure. So that kind of thinking says, let's keep it tight, but it could go all kinds of wrong, couldn't it? Or they weren't very good at Old Trafford. Let's go for it. Let's get the 10 points. Let's make this comfortable in the last two games. Let's assume that we'll beat Shakhtar at home, and it makes that Leverkusen game a little less difficult. Moyes, for most of this season, would have convinced me that he would have gone quite negative in this game and would play 3 in midfield, and the fullbacks wouldn't press forward quite so much, and we might leave Van Persie up front almost on his own. We were really quite withdrawn. Last game in 20 minutes, maybe it's different. Maybe the penny has dropped.
Already? That's quicker than we expected.
We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. All right, there's one more Twitter question that I want to do from @Liz Worsley, our friend Liz, who has asked, this is sadly probably looking like it's going to be hypothetical for the time being. We've been looking into the logistics of trying to organise a live Rantcast in Manchester, but it's looking like dates are going to defeat us for the time being. We'll revisit this and we'll definitely something we'd want to do in the future. And Liz says, if you could choose 3 guests for a live show of the Rantcast to grill, who would you have? So just before we do predictions, I'm going to go with, first of all, I'm not going to grill him, but we'd have to have Danny Welbeck there. That's just non-negotiable. It's part of my rider. I'm not turning up unless Danny's there. You get to pick the second one then, Ed.
Any guests we like? Eric.
Yes, of course. Although he's a bit of a reticent interviewee, Eric.
He seemed to interview very well when I met him in Rio. Can I just throw that one in there again? Mind you, I had quite a few caipirinhas at the time, and so did he.
So you met Eric Cantona in a jazz club in Rio? Is that what you're saying, Ed?
That's what I'm saying. Just yeah.
Unbelievable.
Never told that story before, have I?
To be honest, I'll never get tired of hearing it just because of how insanely perfect it is. And then I guess for a last guest, I don't know. I think I might just have to have Robin there. It's a tricky one because part of me thinks Fergie and we just give him a hard time about the Glazers for the 90 minutes. But he's just not going to stay if we do that. And also, honestly, if I met him, I kind of wouldn't want to waste the time by just antagonising him. He knows that people think that of him. We're not going to get an answer. So maybe just 90 minutes with Ferg, but, a bit.
But this is our hypothetical lineup.
All right.
So, why get all logical about it? So my 3, way better than your 3. I've got Ferguson, Cantona and Keane. Okay. And that's going to make for a bloody good night, that is.
All right, I'll have Robin, Danny and Adnan Januzaj for a kind of opposite, like a nice friendly loving.
Tickets at all good booksellers and round the back of Chorlton bus station.
Yeah, I think yours are going to sell better, but mine will be friendlier, so there you go.
Very good. So, predictions for the 2 games ahead.
I don't think it's possible for me to predict a loss or a draw against Fulham. Even though it's away, even though they might up their game, even though we've been very shaky and by no means solid, especially coming on the back of such relatively good form for United, well, good results at least. I'm going to go with 3-1. That's what I'm going to go with. Dimitar Berbatov to score theirs.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to go for a 2-0 win for United. Let's assume that Fulham don't score from the halfway line or some other insane goal. Just a nod to Kasami's goal the other week. Took it on the chest and then Van Basten style volleyed it over the keeper. A wonderful, wonderful goal.
There have been both some absolutely incredible goals and some properly atrocious goalkeeping in recent weeks.
Most of the atrocious stuff performed by Mr. Hart over in East Manchester. Quite amusing, that one, got to say. Can't help myself feeling a little bit schadenfreude about that.
Joe Hart. I'm reticent to have schadenfreude about that because he's a very talented young goalkeeper who has suffered a massive dip in confidence and it's really affecting him. And I'm like, there but for the grace of Eric.
Well, he's not that young, so he's 26 now and he's been around a long time, and I don't think he's ever going to suffer confidence. He's the Nicholas Bentner of goalkeeping, isn't he?
This is a great illusion that people have about confidence, that somehow people with big heads are self-confident, but it's not generally the case. Ego is the flip side of massive self-doubt, and if that kind of ego cracks, what you're left with is the kind of soft, mushy interior of self-doubt. So I think
soft and mushy is a good description of Hart's goalkeeping at the moment. You're maybe not liking this. I'm liking this. Although I'm rather disappointed that Patrick Barkley never replies to my tweets. I was interested in his deep and thoughtful analysis about the comparison between David De Gea's performances 2 years ago and Joe Hart's now, but he's not getting back to me.
If Joe Hart wants to feel better about himself, which I'm sure he does right now, rather than just look at his lovely hair, what he could do worse than watch, I think it was Hamburg against Freiburg in the Bundesliga. 3-0? I think it was 3-0 to Hamburg, right? And it was the Freiburg goalkeeper. I can't remember which way around it was, but anyway, Every single one of the goals, a proper goalkeeping howler, right up with that Joe Hart level. If you've not seen it, check it out.
Yeah, do that. Talking of hair, which you mentioned there, can't pass this opportunity by to talk about the golden ball, FIFA's World Player of the Year type thing that's voted on by the captain of Vanuatu Islands and other luminaries like the head coach of Jamaica and the other pointless footballing nations like Scotland and Wales. No, I'm kidding. Before you send me death threats. It looks like Messi versus Ronaldo again, or maybe Frank Ribery will have a say in this one this time, around being the outstanding player in the Bayern Munich side. But Sepp Blatter this week praised Messi to the high heavens and said that Ronaldo spends a lot of money in the hairdressers. Yeah,
I mean, it was very ugly, I have to say. If I was Ronaldo, I would probably be annoyed by that. And Ronaldo indeed was. New chant, Viva Ronaldo, passive-aggressive, two FIFA bigwigs, Viva Ronaldo. After Ronaldo tweeted, I wish Blatter health and happiness, safe in the knowledge that he will continue to see his favourite players, clubs and countries do well.
Oof, ouch. I'd have been tempted to tweet something back about hair, given that Blatter doesn't have very much.
Yeah, I mean... Really, really classless from Blatter.
Are you surprised? When has he ever done anything with any kind of class?
Exactly. He is a character pretty much devoid of class. And, it was sort of quite revealing, really, because also I think it's a completely convenient narrative and there's lots of behind-the-scenes stuff to suggest that it's not quite the truth, that Leo Messi is the golden boy who you'd want to bring home to your mum, as he said. And that Ronaldo's this terrible egomaniac. I mean, obviously there's some truth in that last bit, but actually Messi's got a chippy side and Ronaldo's got a really nice side, Dozens of players came out this week and said, apparently he's a lovely boy. Very good. So, talking of the international game, very briefly, Michel Platini, who appears to be getting a little more insane each time we're talking about him, now wants a 40-team World Cup. He said you could increase the number of teams from Africa and Asia and Oceania and Europe too. Europe over the years has lost a number of teams, now down to 13 teams, and then there's like 6 from Asia and 6 from Africa and 6 from South, or 5.5 from South America and half from Oceania and so on. And it's this age-old debate about what's the right balance for the World Cup. Should it be the best 32 sides in the world or should it have global representation? Clearly, Platini, without wanting to dilute the European contingent, wants a more global representation. Of course, he's after the top job, so he would say that. I mean, I have to say, for me, moving to 40 teams would simply dilute the quality of the first round. You'd have to extend the first round, presumably, and have 5-team groups, meaning an extra game. And there'd be a lot of dross, and it wouldn't add to the World Cup at all. There is a balance to be struck, because getting to the World Cup is such a big deal for countries that don't do it traditionally. But you don't want the World Cup to be rubbish, right? You want the World Cup to be good. So this is a really difficult balance to strike. And I think, actually, at the moment, it's not like every team in the World Cup is world class, is it? So...
No, right, exactly. Good piece by Jonathan Wilson in The Guardian analysing this, saying if you look at the rankings, there are 20 European teams in the top 32, so already there's a skew away from quality towards global. And that's important because you wouldn't want massive representation from one continent. It would just become a slightly larger version of the European Championships.
Yeah, Europe versus South America and some other teams thrown in, right? That's, that'd be what it was. And I think it's really good that it's not that anymore. And, I think they've got the balance pretty well at the moment. I thought the last World Cup, some people didn't enjoy it that much, but I really did enjoy it.
I'm certainly looking forward to Brazil. If anyone wants to sponsor us for a month's worth of live rankcasts in Brazil, I'm more than happy to take your sponsorship.
Pretty hardcore about the sponsorships I won't accept. I'm trying to think if I'd slightly relax that for a month of live rankcasts in Brazil. I don't think I could do it.
Look, if you're a gambling, smoking, heroin pusher, I'm all in. All in.
I don't think I could do it. Talking of gambling, what do you think the score is going to be against Sociedad?
I think United are going to go there and draw, so I'm going to say 1-1.
Yeah, I'm going with 2-2. That's my outlandish prediction.
We had a rather large segue in the middle of our predictions there. I thought you were just trying to avoid it myself.
No, okay. I'm not. All right, so if you want to get us in between now and next week's show, you can get me at UTD Rantcast, you can get Ed at United Rant, you can get us both, or more likely neither of us, at facebook.com/United Rant. There's the show page on unitedrant.co.uk where you can leave comments on the podcast. Always read those.
We really should make an effort with our Facebook page. Funny thing is, I've actually visited the Facebook headquarters more times than I visited our Facebook page. that is the truth. UnitedRant.co.uk/donate if you want to chip in tens of thousands of pounds for us to go to Rio for the summer, or if you want to chip in a tenner to help cover the costs of bandwidth for the thousands of people that enjoy the Rantcast on a weekly basis. Thank you so much for listening. It means the world to me and Ed. I know we were really hoping to be able to get a live Rantcast together over Christmas, but sadly dates and logistics look like they are conspiring against us. But we haven't totally given up hope of pulling something out of the hat yet, and we'll definitely do one at some point, since people have been so kind about expressing an interest to come along. And to be honest, just the fact that you would come along means the world. Indeed. And talking of doing one, that's it from us.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.